Continuous improvement comes in lots of different flavors and styles. I'm Bella Engelbach, and I'm inviting you to journey with me to the edges of lean. Episode 129, Continuously Upgrading Your Thinking with Fletcher Ellingson. As lean thinkers, we often look at life as a series of problems to be solved. I know I do this. I will be somewhere and I see something that is not working quite right, and I am immediately thinking about the root cause of the issue and potential countermeasures to try. Do you do that too? That's why I love this conversation with Fletcher Ellingson, who talks about how to live a feel-good life, building grace and gratitude into the work we do. And wait till you hear why he says our values don't mean jack. Fletcher Ellingson, welcome to the Edges of Lean.
Thanks, Bella. Good to be here. I've enjoyed your show. In fact, I was just listening to another one of your episodes before we hopped on the call here. So glad to be here.
Thanks for listening. Fletcher, I'd love it if you could introduce yourself to everyone.
Yeah, my name is Fletcher Ellingson, and who I am is a clearing for people to feel safe, heard, and empowered. I know that's a weird statement to say, but that's really who I am at my core. I also wear a lot of hats or play a lot of roles in this life. I've been a professional magician. I'm a coach. I'm a best-selling author. I'm a husband and a father. Those are roles that I play, but what I really love to do is help people change the way they think. And that's what I do with my clients. My clients come here to me because they're stuck in a way of thinking and they don't realize it. And together we help them transition to a new way of thinking. And as a result of that, they are able to produce new and outstanding outcomes in their health, wealth, and relationships. And the only reason I can do that is because I have had wonderful, wonderful mentors and teachers that have helped me shift my thinking. Starting since I was in sixth grade, I was a bit of an oddball, Bella. I was reading Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking when I was in elementary school.
In sixth grade?
Yeah.
In sixth grade?
Yeah, my father came out on the stoop. He loved to remind me of this. Like he came out on the stoop of the front porch and I was there reading and it was a nice sunshiny day. It was in the summer. And he said, "Hey, Fletch, what you reading?" And I said, "The Power of Positive Thinking." And he just kind of stopped. He's like, "By Norman Vincent Peale?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "You are an odd child." But I've always just had an interest in I didn't know it was called, personal development or personal evolution at the time, but I just always had an interest in the way the mind worked.
That's really interesting. So many of us, I think, grow up, and you talk about this in your book, kind of following the programs that are set in our life, in our mind, by all the experiences we've had, the people we've interacted with. And that moment when you stop and think about, hey, how is this working? How does this actually work? Some people comes to that earlier, interested. They might get an interest in psychology in school. Some people it comes along much later. And I think for a handful of people, it never really happens. That they don't see that what's happening in the universe or in the personal space is actually influenced by what's happening inside their head.
Absolutely.
And so for you in sixth grade to start to think about that, were you weird in other ways, Fletcher?
Was I weird in other ways? I love that question. Was I weird in other ways? I loved playing. I guess I was weird in another way that, when everybody went off to sports in junior high, I remember being devastated in junior high when I realized there was no recess.
Oh, isn't that awful?
Recess was a thing. Yeah, it was gone. And instead there was just organized sports, which I get it. People love sports and I like sports. I like playing sports, but I always missed that element of play. And so I think if I was weird in another way, it was that I was always looking to play, like pretend to play. I had a very vivid imagination and would spend a lot of time by myself. I had a lot of time by myself as a child. And so, yeah, play, pretending, that was my world.
Was that what took you into magic then? That being able to create illusion, and was that coming out of play or was that something else?
You know what? When my cousin came home from his first year of college, and so I was in high school by this time, and he showed me this trick that he learned in a bar, a card trick. And I'd never seen, I was completely bewildered and baffled. I just like, how is that humanly possible? I had no clue. that moment of bewilderment, that moment of awe, intrigue, and curiosity, I love that space of complete awe. And as an adult, those moments are so few and far between. So that's what drew me to magic, like that moment of like where you simply cannot figure out this thing that makes zero sense. It's so rare for adults. And so I dove head first into magic and began practicing. And I was one of those guys you see on the street corner down in like Seattle, Washington, by the Pike Place Market, who is performing on the street, right, for tips. So that's where I honed my craft, because you have a new audience every few minutes. But anyways, yeah. And I love performing for adults specifically because they also appreciate that moment of just total bewilderment and bemusement, right?
Wow. Wow. It's very cool, because I think my idea would be, well, it's fun. It would be fun to do for kids, but as you said, kids expect that. They expect to be surprised because they don't know everything yet.
Right.
But we adults, we think we know everything. And then if a magician or
Yes.
somebody else shows us something we cannot comprehend how it works, that moment of, like, how do you do that? What's that?
Yes.
Can I believe my own eyes? That
Exactly.
is a rare moment.
Yeah, and Bella, you nailed it. That's usually the sentence that comes out of people's mouths. The brain cannot reconstruct what they just saw. And so all they're left with is a sentence. And that sentence is usually, how did you do that? Because it simply confounds the brain, right?
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful moment of absolute, and I enjoy that.
Yeah. And it's fun. It brings lightness to people's
Absolutely.
lives.
Yeah.
And that's what I think what you really talk about a lot, right? The name of your book is The Practice of Feeling Good, and it's about how to live in a more positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about what I'm helping my clients do is learning how to feel good on demand, because my experience for much of my life, and certainly most people that I know, they experience emotions that seem to happen to them as if they had no cause of the emotion. And so, some people are like, what's going on today? I don't know. I'm just in a funk. What's going on? I don't know. I just woke up in a funk. It's like an emotion descended down upon them, and then they'll be, well, I'll just be fine in a while, as if they must wait for that emotion to ascend and dissipate. Right? They're at the whim of these emotions. And so what I want people to know is that we can begin to feel good on demand. And when I say good, Bella, I don't just mean like happy. In fact, it's a term that I rarely use. But what I do mean by the word good, it's an umbrella concept. And underneath that umbrella, good means feeling safe, secure, connected, enthusiastic, eager, optimistic, open, willing. There's so many words and descriptors that fall underneath the practice of feeling good. And that's what I mean by that.
So you're not just talking about, and I think, this is really a disservice to people who are really struggling with something like depression. You just say to people, oh, just buck up, let me take you out for a ride. You'll feel better. You're not just talking about demanding that people change their mood, but about a practice that gives them the ability to shift the mood.
Yes. Yes, right? We're helping people step into a sense of agency so they can influence how they're actually feeling. And some people are like, well, I don't know that I can do that. Or some people are under the illusion that they're already doing it. But I'll give you a quick example. I mentioned this in the book, and I'll just make it brief. But we all go to movies once in a while, or we watch them on, whether we're in a theater or at our home. And in that 2-hour movie, you experience an intense roller coaster of emotions. There's happiness or sadness. There's fear or awe, or there's uncertainty, or there's romance, and you have this crescendoing, like waves of emotion coming and going in 2 hours. In fact, in that 2-hour movie, you might feel a broader range of emotions than you normally do in an entire week. But at the end of it, consider that you were experiencing these emotions simply because you are watching light on a screen, right? This is not real. In fact, the movie is fictitious. In fact, the movie is being broken up, but the director's calling cut and people are laughing. But the brain must, it has no choice. It must create an emotion that is in alignment with what we're focused on. And so in a nutshell, how do we begin to create feelings on demand? By becoming practiced at where we're placing our focus.
Which is really interesting to people who are practicing lean, Fletcher, because,
Yes.
right? Because what we're talking about when we're talking about improving something, whether it's improving a business process or improving a relationship, right, has to do with what are we actually like looking at, what are we focusing on, where are we spending our energy, and then how do we react to it? Because so, one of the things that we talk about a lot in lean is this practice of going to the gemba, which is for a leader, supervisor, manager to go to where the work is actually being done. Now you can go to where the work is actually being done and you can see something that's not being done the way that it could be, or is leading to a result that is not the result you want. As a leader, you have a wide range of choices about how you react to that, right? And the skill that is needed to be developed is the skill of not seeing those things and becoming angry about them.
Yes.
Well, I saw that and it made me really angry, right?
Yes.
Right. It's the skill of being able to focus on those things, see those things, and then essentially share an emotion with the person whose work is going to improve because of the way that you interact with them and the way that you coach them. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
It totally does. Yes, it does. I think we're speaking the same language. At the core of the practice of feeling good is the practice of bringing an empowering story to any situation, right? So I just watched this beautiful movie. It's a Japanese film, and I think it's called Perfect Days or The Perfect Day, something like that. Look it up if you haven't. It's an award-winning movie. There's very little dialogue, but it is about this guy he's on the Tokyo toilet. He's a Tokyo toilet cleaner. And his job is to go and clean the public restrooms of Tokyo, some very specific bathrooms. And most people would think, what a gross job. I'd hate to have that job. This guy treats it like it's the most significant, beautiful opportunity in the world. He has a mirror that he looks underneath places that he can't see. He wants to make sure he gets it all. He wants the experience for people who go in and use that restroom to be like, whoa, this is beautiful in here, right? I mean, it's so his story about what he's doing, it informs his emotional experience of his life. And it is like such the perfect example of what we're talking about here, the practice of feeling good, bringing an empowering story.
So when you say an empowering story, what you're saying, as I gather from what you're just saying about the movie, is that in his mind, he has a whole little plot about how somebody's going to feel, how happy they're going to be when they come into this public restroom.
Yeah. And his gratitude that he has purpose in life, his gratitude that he has mobility, that he can get up and do. He has a whole routine around this, and he gets to be outside. I mean, it's really quite beautiful. I highly recommend it.
I have to look that up.
Yeah,
it reminds me of a woman we met when we were on vacation in Munich a few years ago, and she was also responsible for a public restroom in a park. And we talked to her for a little while. And for her little restroom that she maintained was like her house. And she was inviting people to her house. And so one of these people that you go in, you tip them because they're cleaning.
yeah.
And she just wanted to have a relationship with everyone who came into the bathroom. And she was so happy to do that job and to be cleaning the toilets. It was satisfying to her. So if these people can create this empowering story around a job that most of us think is an awful job,
Yes.
What's stopping us, Fletcher, from creating empowering stories from other bad situations that we find ourselves in, or situations we might think are bad?
Okay, I love this question. Thank you for asking it. What's stopping us is a different story. What's stopping
Ah,
us is a different story. And that story might sound like this. I never catch a break. Life never works out for me. I can never be as good as they are. I'm too old for that. I'm too young. These are the stories that populate our brain without our permission, consent, or approval. They show up, and we think that we're thinking those thoughts. We think and we buy into it. What we don't understand is that those are simply programs that, I mean, they are just on repeat. And the way you know it's a program is it's never very clever. It's always saying the same thing over and over and over again, right? The words are the same. This is something that shows up without your permission, consent, or approval. And what we want to do is begin to get curious about these stories. If we understand clearly that our brain is creating an emotion in reaction to the story, next time we get an emotion that we don't understand, that we don't care for, that doesn't feel good, let's get curious. Oh, what's the story behind this emotion? What is my brain creating an emotion so that it's aligning with the story? What's the story? Get clear about it. Does that story feel good? Does it serve me? If not, then we have an opportunity to create a different story. Now, some people listening to this might think, "Oh, Fletcher, it's not that simple. You can't just start making up new stories." But what I encourage your listeners to consider is that that's what we've been doing our entire lives, is making up stories.
right, right. I mean,
yes.
when someone makes the decision that they're going to go to college, right? They have to have a story in their mind that I am the kind of person who goes to college. Even if people around them are saying, "Oh, people like you don't go to college," they have
Yes,
to have that own story in their mind. Oh, I'm the kind of person that does go to college, right?
exactly. Exactly. And we can simply declare these things. Now, I don't want people to think like, if I just do it once, it's gonna work. And no. That's why it's called the practice of feeling good. Most of us are practiced at feeling terrible. Most of our we're practiced at feeling insecure, jealous, upset, impatient, frustrated, right? I mean, any of these ring a bell, ding, ding, ding. I'm raising my hand, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
I'm masterfully practiced at these ways. It's taken me a lot of dedication and diligence and deliberate thinking and effort to create new stories. Now, and I don't just I say them once, I commit these to memory, right? Like, so one of the stories that I have is that life's always working out for my greatest evolution. Notice I didn't say it's always working out the way I want it to. It's working out for my greatest evolution, or that good things are lined up, stacked up, and showing up daily. These mantras are at my disposal because I've programmed them into my mind. I've defined who I am in my marriage. We are wide open communication, stronger than steel support, a living illustration of joy, connection, and contribution. I've taken the time and I have dozens of these, to literally memorize them. I say them on a regular basis. Why? Because I want these to become the default through which I view life, instead of my previous default, which really wasn't serving me very well.
Right. And you're not talking about, I just want to clarify this for myself. So you're not talking about the kind of things where people sort of write an affirmation and they stick it on the mirror and they look at it every day. You're talking about something that is much more carefully planned out and thought through.
Yeah, so I just returned from Maui, which is one of my favorite places there. And every time I'm there, I have these wonderful epiphanies. Just walking on the beach in the surf. I mean, it's just like such a feel-good place for me. It's where I did some of the writing for my book. But this past time, it was like a download began to come to me. And I realized there are certain areas in my health and well-being that I have been resigned to, I've been resistant to. And it was just playing in the background for decades. I've been living with this condition that I just thought there's nothing you can do about it. That's just the way it is. When I realized that, when it came to the forefront of my mind, I was like, whoa, I've been resisting the messages of my body. And then I began getting these sentences and words in my head that formulated. And so this new one that I'm programming into my mind is, I am open to and working with the universal intelligence of my body to create health and well-being. Now, that seems like a very simple sentence, but to me, each word has significant meaning, and it stands in clear opposition to a way that how I was living. And so I craft these messages because I really do believe they're programs, just like my iPhone here, right? I've got an iPhone. There's a bunch of applications on there, apps,
Right.
right? Those apps are designed to produce a particular outcome, right? They can only produce outcomes within their programming. They cannot produce an outcome that is outside of their programming. So that's why I'm very meticulous. Language matters. And that's why I'm very meticulous at what I program my brain with.
And that's done carefully and with, as you said, so you're kind of working through this new one
Yes.
now and
Yeah.
starting to set that in your mind.
Yeah, it becomes an intention. It becomes a something you begin to live into. And it is already my health issue that I've been literally dealing with for 30 years. Already, I'm seeing the needle move because I got into alignment with my body and I brought my thinking into alignment.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we talk about a lot in the lean community is the importance of having values, and that we use values to guide our work, and for an organization, that values are used to guide the work of the people within the organization and to keep people aligned as to the purpose of the organization. But you have a very interesting thing that you say about values, and I want you to go ahead and say it.
Yeah, you bet. I've come to the understanding that our values really don't mean jack. And I know that a lot of people listening might get their hackles up. Like, what do you mean? Of course, values mean something. But I've been a part of many businesses. There have been retreats where we spend time and money and resources on identifying our core values. And I'm not saying that's a waste of time, but I'm saying that will not move the needle in most cases. Look, we used to host a weekend seminar, my wife and I, called Diabetes Smackdown, the Ultimate Solution. And this was for people who were dealing with type 2 diabetes and or were at risk for it. Now, when I would ask the question in the seminar on the first day, raise your hand if you value health and vitality.
Everyone raise their hand, right? Every
right.
single person. Yeah.
Yes. You see, having valuing health and vitality doesn't move the needle. I've worked with clients who wanted to create and generate more wealth. And many of these clients have not had a savings account. So I'd ask them, well, first of all, do you value having financial stability? Of course I do, Fletcher, of course. Great. Tell me what's in your savings account. And in some cases there's zero, right? But they value financial stability. So, and if this conversation is of interest, I go more into depth in the book. But basically, what we do is a quick exercise. We begin to identify all the values. Like there's relationships, family, honesty, loyalty, good work ethic, freedom, right? Financial stability. I mean, on and on and on and on, right? And I have those people put it in a list, and I at the top of that list we write my values, and that value that we usually come up about a good 15 or 20 values, and then I ask them to write another column and do an imaginary copy and paste in their mind, where you copy all these values that you have, paste them over into the next column, and at the top of that next column we write the mafia's values. And what we see is we share, with very few exceptions, the exact same values as the mafia and every drug cartel on the planet. Well, now some people
yeah, and that's a page in the book, right? There's like a full page table of it. And you go, oh yeah, that's really true. I value family. The mafia values family.
Big time, don't they?
Series of movies about it, right? You know, we know that. Yeah.
Now some people say, well, Fletcher, they don't value honesty. Oh, they value honesty within their tribe. They value it perhaps more than we do, because if you are not honest, if you are not loyal, there's going to be significant and severe consequences, right? They take those values very seriously. Now, some people will say to me, Fletcher, I'm looking to find a mate. I'm looking for my soul mate. I want a partner in life, but I want them to share the same values as me. I really want to meet someone who shares the same values. Well, you didn't just narrow down the dating pool. You opened up to the entire, to everybody on the planet, right? Because everybody has your same values. Now, at the end of the day, what we want to realize is that values simply are an indicator of preference. They simply indicate a preference. I prefer financial stability. I prefer honesty, loyalty. I prefer to have quality time with family. I prefer friendships, right? They are indicators of preference, and yet they do not produce an outcome. So if we want to begin to produce higher outcomes, we have to shift the conversation. And the conversation has to go to standards.
And that is, that is such a lean concept, right?
Yes, right.
You have to have you have to create your standards, and you have to work to achieve those standards. It's in the work to achieve the standard that you do the learning. And of course you can upgrade the standard when you need to continue to improve the performance.
Exactly.
But the value alone without the standard, like you said, is not going to get you anything. We value collaboration, right? That you see that in a lot of organizations. It's so important for continuous improvement and for lean thinking to be able to collaborate. But what's the standard around that? And how does that reflect then in what we are personally doing as leaders, or what we're asking employees to do?
Yes, exactly. So now you're asking really, really good questions. So there's a value that you have, financial stability. Oh, great. Well, what's your standard around it? Are you living month to month? Are you spending more than you generate? Right. So if that's the case, then your standards do not support the value. You can still value it, but there's no support there. You're not breathing any life into the value. You're just, it's like dying on the vine, right? So for a long time, I valued financial stability, but if you looked at my personal checking account, there was a big fat zero. Okay. I was in debt. I had car debt. We thought, for like most Americans, you simply have a car payment your entire life. Okay. And that was literally until one of my friends purchased a truck, and I was like, wow, this is a really nice truck. And we were talking about some of the features, like, wow, I love this truck. Gosh, how much did it cost? And he told me how much it cost. And I was like, wow, what are the payments on that? He's like, well, we don't have any payments. And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, we paid cash for it. I was like, what do you mean you paid cash? He's like, yeah, no, we paid it in full. And that didn't make sense to me, right? I was like, is that possible? Like, I mean, how do you save up that much money? And then he explained to me, well, we have a standard in our home. Every month, we put X amount of dollars into our car fund. And at the end of 5 years, we have enough money to purchase outright a vehicle so that we don't have to go in debt for it. That blew my mind. And I'll never forget it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, standards. Wow. What are my standards around my health? What are my standards around my parenting? What are my standards around my how I operate my business? What are my standards around honesty, right? What are my standards around sex? What are my standards around eating? Like, there are standards everywhere. What are standards around whether you make your bed or not in the morning, right? Now, not that either way is right or wrong, but our standards is we get out of bed, we immediately make it. Why? Because it feels good when we walk into that room and the bed is made, right?
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So I encourage your listeners to really get curious and begin to ask the question, what's my standard when it comes to, fill in the blank?
Right. Yeah. And I know, like, so many of us have these lists of values. And as you said, there's a lot of time and money that people put into creating the values. But then what is it that actually makes them come alive? And as you said before about anything, it's going to take some time. You're going to have to think through all of this, and probably not do it all at once, right? You're going to.
And I encourage your listeners you want to be able to articulate your standard. Like in a one sentence, like for me, my standard financially is to always be paid ahead. So this is a real life example. So if you go down to the city of my city, at my city hall, and look up into my account for my water, my sewer, all that kind of stuff, waste, the garbage pickup, you'll see that I'm paid ahead at least 3 to 6 months. And now some people say, well, Fletcher, why would you do that? That's because it's my standard to be paid ahead. I'm always ahead financially because for much of my life, I was behind. And I was behind because I never, ever took the time to define my financial standards.
And then that winding right back around to what you're talking about, the practice of feeling good, then you're not worried about money anymore. That's
Hey,
you can.
you got it. You got it. I'm paid ahead. So if something were to happen, like a world pandemic, I have a little bit of a cushion built in.
Fletcher, tell me about your practice today. How do people find you, and what are the kinds of things that people come to you for help with?
Yeah, so I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of real estate professionals, a lot of solopreneurs, but I also work with other people too, like work physicians, attorneys, stay at home. I've been very blessed to be able to work with a wide range of people. I also have a television show, and so it gives me a broad reach.
Uh-huh.
So perhaps that is also why. But yeah, you can reach me at fletcherellingson.com or thepracticeoffeelinggood.com. And yeah, if there's anything going on in if there's an area of your life where you'd like to have a breakthrough, like really a shift your thinking around your health and vitality, around your marriage, around parenting, around your career, around finances, there we can hop on a discovery call. It's free. We take an hour, and during that hour you're going to get a ton of value, whether you work with me or not. You're going to get some really cool insights, and if you decide to work with me, great. We're going to do something radical. We're going to shift your thinking so that you begin thinking newly about that area of your life, which will in turn allow you to produce new outcomes, and that is exciting.
That is exciting. So people, you're working with a wide range of people. It sounds like. What are the kinds of things that people are coming to for the most? What's the
You know what? A lot of people come to me because they think they want to work on their business. And they're like, Fletcher, can you give me some new strategies? I'm like, the biggest thing that you can do, because I assume that you have got more strategies that you can shake a stick at, right? The thing that people end up doing is working on themselves and their thinking, understanding their thinking. As a result of that, like the person who did come to me for instance, recently wanted to work on his business. We ended up spending the 9 months in the curriculum working on his thinking. As a result of that, I got a message from him, and these are these messages always start the same way. And Bella, they're Fletcher, you're never going to believe what just happened. He went from a $7,000 a month to a $40,000 a month, and has been doing that consistently. Now, that's not credit to me. That's credit to him shifting his thinking, beginning to think newly about his life. And as a result of that, he's been able to produce incredibly new and outstanding results in his business, which is why he came to me ultimately.
That's so interesting, and it is really, I think, very parallel with what a lot of people working in the lean space see, where a CEO or a company owner will come and they say, well, I really want to improve my business, but in the end, they have to change how they think about it, and they
Yes.
have to change their own behavior, and that will have an impact on the business and has an impact on the people around them. And so that's the other thing I just wanted to touch on with you, which is, what is the impact of the kind of work that you do on the people who are surrounding the people you work with?
Yeah, it has. I love this overflow effect. So some people who are working with me to better their business report to me that their marriage is improving or their parenting is improving, right? Because one of the things that we work on in the curriculum is that we come to the understanding that everyone is doing the best they can with the tools and the programming that they have, including ourselves, right? So when we get that I'm doing the best that I can, then it's easier for me to see like, oh, so are my colleagues. They're also doing the best they can. And what that allows for is a well of compassion and empathy to rise up and to spill over in all directions. And as a result, it changes the relationships in our lives for the better. And if you want higher productivity in your business, start connecting with your employees and your colleagues. Start shifting the emphasis to mindset instead of strategy, because we've got enough strategies, right?
There's plenty of strategy. Yeah.
There's plenty of strategies. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that idea where you said it's an overflow effect, but that
Mhm.
it's that I think what you're saying is, like, if you are being generous and empathetic with yourself and understanding that you're doing, as you said, the best you can based on what has brought you this far, right?
Yes.
Then you're going to be kinder to yourself, and that is going to have an effect on other people. I think you might see other people differently.
Absolutely. It begins to transform the way you view other people. And if you understand that they really are doing the best they can, it takes you out of judgment. It takes you out of this adversarial position. And when judgment is gone, compassion and empathy can rise up, and that can transform a relationship, that can transform a business, that can transform a life.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hey, Fletcher Ellingson, tell us one more time about your book.
Yeah, you can grab a copy of The Practice of Feeling Good, How to Upgrade Your Thinking and Live a Feel-Good Life on Amazon. Or you can go to my website, FletcherEllingson.com, or thepracticeoffeelinggood.com. Either one will take you there, and you can there's a link to grab a copy of my book there as well. And Bella, if any of your listeners are out there listening and are interested in this, if anyone wants to take a moment and email me, I'm going to give a free copy away to one of your listeners who just emails me at FletcherEllingson.com, and please reference
The Edges of Lean.
The Edges of Lean, and
Yeah.
I will send you that free copy.
Wow, what a great gift. Thank you.
Yeah.
Fletcher Ellingson, what is your one piece of advice for a young person starting out?
Yes. The one piece of advice is get around the people who already have the results that you want.
Get
Okay.
around the people who already have the results that you want.
Yes, surround yourself with people who have the results that you want, because they have already trailblazed a path for you to follow.
Really good advice. So you'd have to talk to a few people, hang with a few people to find the ones.
You got it.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, Fletcher Ellingson, Ellingson, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining me at The Edges of Lean.
Thanks so much, Bella.
This is Bella Engelbach, and I'd like to thank Fletcher Ellingson for being my guest at The Edges of Lean. What did you learn from this conversation? What ideas did it spark? We would love to hear from you. Meet Fletcher at FletcherEllingson.com and on LinkedIn. His book is The Practice of Feeling Good. Find me on LinkedIn or at leanforhumans.com, or comment wherever you watch or listen. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my friends in the Lean Communicators community at leancommunicators.com, where you will find lots of great new content every week. The Edges of Lean is written and produced by Bella Engelbach with support from Podcast Inc. This is a Lean for Humans production.